Hey guys. All right, so here I'm showing you the 3-volt LEDs, a 3-volt battery, rechargeable. These awesome little guys. These are standard tools I use for any projects. There's a push button. It's not a temporary switch. It's a actual push switch. So it'll turn once you push it, it'll stay on. Push it again to turn it off. The battery itself is a 3-volt battery. Here I'm cutting a piece of plastic to match the basically just be the lid. Later I'll show you how I attach it to the board or the tile. I just want to trace it in the square so it doesn't look crappy when it comes out. And I cut it. I just score it and pinch it or bend it and it'll come right out. Of course, it's never perfect. And since I love tools, here's a tool I like to use. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. I don't know why. Um, Usually the smaller pieces and the thinner, the better. But it's basically like just a really thick shear. If I could go back in time, I probably would have picked a different model, but it is what it is. So here's one of my tiles. It's 12 by 12, 12 inches by 12 inches. Just placing pieces on there, on that piece I just cut out to make sure it fits. The pieces will fit underneath it. So I trace it out and then cut it out. Just two pieces of shipping styrofoam that I put together, one on each side of the moat, if you will. And yeah, if you cut it at an angle, if you cut straight down for the first ones on the outside of the edges, and then cut it at an angle, what that does is it kind of like relieves some of the pieces, and you can kind of cut them out like in triangles. It's a common woodworking technique. Um, yeah, and here I'm just making a giant mess. All right, mess is cleared. Test fit. I don't know if it matters, but I like to use the negative side of the battery for the push buttons. I read somewhere that that helps keep the if you have a bad battery corroding, it helps keep the lines stay clear of any corrosion. I don't know how much that's true or not, but ever since I just that's what I've always done. And it'll work either way, whether you put it on the positive or the negative side of the battery. So here I'm just drilling out holes for the wires to go into, trying to keep it tidy. I bored out a little bit, try pushing those styrofoam balls that come into the way. And I'll have two different LEDs going to one each side of the tile. So I'll have two lines there. The hole had to be a little bit thicker than normal, but this wire is super thin. It's nice. It's braided and has equal length, positive and negative. And those white pieces of plastic I just cut out to put in there. This way, that's not just a super bright LED in our face when we're playing our games. I just use these awesome little wire cutters. These are probably one of my favorite tools. You'll see why in a minute. When you cut the wire, just make sure you have enough length to kind of weave it in and out. You don't have to cut it again. Undo it, give myself a little bit of space. And here's why. Look at this. I mean, look at that. That's just super easy. Takes a minute to figure out what tension you need on there, but once you figure it out for what kind of wire you're using, it is amazing. No wire stripping. I mean, that is a wire stripper, but you don't have to sit there with an exact knife and pull off a little amount for this little itty bitty wire. I mean, this thing can do anything from like 12 gauge all the way down to whatever this is, microscopic. And I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, but the higher the gauge, the smaller the wire, because we like to make things make a lot of sense, don't we? All right, these little LEDs I'm using are quite unique. It's actually a bunch of little LEDs in like a hard clear coat, and so they have a positive and a negative. I mean, every LED does, but these ones are specifically unique because it's honestly super hard to tell. But there's a little hole. I'll show you here in a minute. On the side of the positive, and that's the only way you could tell. Now, since it's such low voltage, it won't really hurt it that much if you take it in and out, or if you swap it from um, positive or negative. But if it doesn't light up and your battery's on, or your switch is on, you know that you put them on the wrong side, so just flip it. Here I am just pre-coating, or I can't remember the name, but adding solder to the wire to make sure that it's a super easy, quick connection. If you don't do this, it's kind of a pain to get it to have like a third thing in your way while you're soldering. And I'm not really good at soldering, I'll be honest, but it seems to work. I'm not building anything that needs specific soldering specifications. I just throw in LEDs on models and stuff. The battery holder itself is a specific 123 holder. That's the battery style. And I've done projects without an actual holder, and it's honestly miserable. So they're super cheap. I think I got them for like $6 for 10 of them, and for how many I use, it's not bad. So here's the hole I was talking about. That little hole is the positive. So I bend it. I bend that wire because I'm going to cover it up with solder. And if I don't, I'm going to forget which one it is. So it just saves me a little bit of time later. Tinning, that's what it's called. I tin them. Make sure your solder stays clean. You don't have a bunch of leftover solder, because what solder does is once it releases all of its whatever chemical. It actually doesn't stick very well. Forgive me, I'm not too sure on some of these things, but I know that solder itself has a chemical in it that one is toxic and two actually makes it be able to melt and adhere to metals at low temperatures. So if you don't get that old metal off and new chemical on with the metal, then it won't really do much. Kind of just move around like slag. And since the wire has been cut to an even amount, I use this little extension wire to make so I don't have a lot of excess red or excess black wires inside that little compartment. And once you do a weld, it kind of stays where it is. So once you heat those two pieces up, see here, I have to add a little bit extra, I think. Yeah. So once you put those pieces in place, they don't really like to move a lot. And I actually end up replacing this red wire because, you know, mixing red and black wires is like a no-no for positive and negatives. And I just told you that I use the negative side. So, but see how it kind of stays there? If I use that and shove it in that little compartment, what that would do is it'd break the bond somewhere because it likes to stay exactly where it is after you solder it. So put your pieces in place and then solder it. But if you're working in a really small space, try and make it smaller. This way it'll actually fit inside of it. All right, as you might have noticed, I changed out the wire to black wire. Made that little extension, like I said, with the red wire. Here I am tuning the LEDs. So now imagine if I had another piece that I had to hold in place, which would be the solder itself, which would be a lot bigger of a pain. So here I just heat up the two elements, tap it together, and you're good to go. Also make sure your battery is disconnected or you don't have your battery actually in your circuit while you're soldering to prevent some shorts. Could happen. I've never done it, and honestly, I've sometimes forgot the battery in, and it still works fine. Do a test, lights up, cool. Here I'm showing you lighting up. You always want to do a test before you finish your project because, well, nothing worse than having a completed project and your LED doesn't work. I actually have that. I did that to one of my LED projects. Kind of ruined my Titan, but that's okay. If you didn't know, you wouldn't have seen it. These little thermal tweezers are amazing. You can get them as hot as you want, and where the paint is, it doesn't transfer heat, so you can hold that hot solder and you're good to go. The material I'm holding right now is actually from a Timu. It's a fish tank grate. It's perfect for scale modeling. I like to use it for like, I don't know, fake bridges or something, or actually like grading. I have closer or smaller mesh stuff. Like I've used crocheting material. That stuff's pretty cool, but paint does not like to stick to it. I've also used like uh, small woven together pieces of metal. I don't know what it's called. It's like chicken wire, but it's a lot tighter so it's not so far spaced. But all my models are actually magnetized, so it is not friendly for trying to have terrain that likes to grab onto your models. Sometimes it's okay, but I don't know. It's a ferrous metal, so magnets love it. Here I am just drilling out holes so I can do like a little wire tuck. I actually like to keep my wires exposed. It helps kind of sell the effect, and there's no reason to hide them for terrain because I mean, when you have a light in the real world, you're gonna have wires to it. And I'm doing like a factory style base, so it works out. I actually like the look. And I just burn off little pieces of plastic that come out. They're sticking out too far with my soldering gun, iron, whatever it's called. And now, of course, I have to unsolder them and in order to do the wire tuck. See how my battery's connected. Whoops. All right, so here's all together. Of course, the LEDs are not connected right now, but I had to make sure there's enough wire to be able to move the mesh, the grating, so I can paint it separately and not have to worry about not having enough wire if I did solder already. All right, time for some painting. Right now, I'm just adding browns, my airbrush to the center of the grate, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be neat with this. I think I'm using the Vallejo Mech chipped brown or something like that. It's amazing paint. And yeah, I think I just throw another brown afterwards. Some of them I've dry brushed, um, like a lighter brown or gray over top. You don't really need to because I'm going to cover this in resin. Well, I didn't need to. Um, and the resin kind of covers up a lot of it with it's transparent, but it's also got a hue of green when I add the inks to it. So it's not really a necessary step. And I've learned that from this. So I learned that by now. So I don't really need to do it for this one. And here's a lighter brown. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this. Just the majority of this is going to get covered up anyways. I mean, between the resin and the grate, it doesn't matter at all. You like my airbrushing technique? Yeah, my Iwata, for whatever reason, the air pressure doesn't have enough to push up the button, so sometimes it sticks. And also, I'm dealing with a dirty airbrush, so I end up just pulling the needle back further than the actual mechanism will allow it. So basically, not proper technique, but that's not what this video is about. All right, so here I am just painting the inside of the little place for our battery and button because I realized the last one I've done, I wish I would have done it. And yeah, it helps cover it up easier, blend it in. I also added little pillars. It's just polystyrene, or not polystyrene, plastic card tubes, and I added little bolts that I had to the top of it. They were magnetic or ferrous. So the magnets I glued to the piece of the plastic we cut out earlier helps make it stick there and stay. And of course, paint the top of it to help blend it in. Well, help the when we paint over it, it'll make it a little more even. And I paint these so the light helps, or the paint helps stop the light coming through. It's actually been primed before. I didn't bother showing you, but I had painted, or I had primed the grate before this. And I obviously have way too much paint in my airbrush, so now I'm just filling little dots for the polystyrene poke through. All right, once that's mostly dried, I add this stuff, AK's concrete. It's amazing. I'm almost out, so I had to use a bunch of different tools to get it out. But I found a spatula works best. Um, used ones to like spread spackle. It acts a lot like concrete, so I figured why not use something that's made for something like that. And just like with concrete or drywall, try to keep one side of the spatula clean. It helps clean up a lot easier. I don't have a paint that matches AK's concrete either, so it's kind of frustrating. I mean, I have a lot of paint and I can't find one that matches it, so I kind of got to be careful with how I do this because I can't color match it. Also, my train tiles, they're made so they're 12 inches by 12 inches, and if I add the concrete to the sides of it, what that does is that pushes it off and makes a little offset. And then if you do that over the course of 5 or 6 tiles, all that need to be put together nicely, it makes for a really crappy fitment and a lot of gaps and stuff. So I actually don't paint the sides with the concrete. It's where I wish I had the paint that matched it to come in, but I don't. So I kind of just keep it black. I use a small little spatula to put it on, and then I use a big spatula to spread it. Of course, I'm not listening to my own advice because the other side of my spatula is not clean. But this stuff dries rock hard, so any imperfections you have while you put it on, you'll see it later. But it's worth the hassle because man, it looks awesome. All right, so skipping ahead, I just added a little bit of black wash to that. Add a little bit um, excitement to that what could be boring concrete. Here I'm using UV curable resin as a border to make sure that the when I do the resin pour, it doesn't just fall out the sides. Make sure there's no bubbles or anything because they'll, once I cure it, there's no going back. I go back and forth a few times. What this does is and as I squeeze the bottle, it helps push and level out the gaps. If there's anything in between the gravel or the base that I added before. All right, just hit it with some UV. You don't have to have a ginormous glow light thing like I do. You can just put it outside if you want, where there's sun. Now I'm going over the painstaking process to add hazard stripes. I think hazard stripes look cool. So I use this tape from Tamiya to kind of get the width I want. So I just push this down a little bit. I'm just using this as a spacer, honestly, to make sure the lines are even. I use a big piece of tape. Uh, it'll actually have more surface area to stick to it because this Tamiya paint does not like to stick to the concrete. Um, as the actual piece that I'll be using to mask. And you'll see me do that quite a bit. This masking tape, honestly, the frog tape, doesn't like to stick to concrete either. So a little bit longer of a piece and then tuck it on the sides where there is no concrete will actually make it stick better. Well, the Tamiya, do the same thing on the other side. And I got wiser and made a bigger piece so I actually can do that thing I just said by placing it on the sides of it where it'll actually adhere. I have a stencil cutter. I have hazard stripes that I could easily just cut and make perfect. But honestly, sometimes I just like to just use pieces of tape and do it old school. I don't even use an airbrush on this. I've actually kind of gotten away from the airbrush. I mean, someone used it earlier, but that's just to make this video even faster. But it's fickle, and I just feel like sometimes I enjoy myself more doing the hobbies without airbrushing. So this is the recipe I use for quick, fast, and easy hazard stripes. I just do black, I have it on black, and I use it. I just take one of my dry brushes, get a little wet, because you never want to put paint on a dry brush. Use my wet palette, doesn't matter. Use paper towel. I even use the tape sometimes. But I just stipple it on. You want to come at a straight angle, and because again, the tape doesn't adhere too well to this. So if you come down at it straight, it'll help keep the line solid and straight and true. And these dry brushes are amazing. The ones from I think Artist Opus maybe. I didn't think I was gonna like them as much. I've had dry brushes before that are dedicated dry brushes. I have the Army Painter ones. Army Painter ones are absolute trash. Like all the time. I've even used them for years, and bristles still fall out. I didn't even think at that rate there'd still be any bristles left to fall out. Who wouldn't think there'd be any bristles left in the brush? But yet here they are, still falling out. These ones, I think you have like the normal wear-in brush when like a few bristles will come out for something big like this. And after that, after the initial ones that fell out, these things have been amazing, and I absolutely love them. So I use these ones for my models, and I try to use the army painter ones that are garbage for terrain. But of course, again, I'm not listening to my own advice, and here I am using it. So maybe don't listen to me. See there, I'm using the tape, kind of get the I don't know, excess paint off or on. It's like a little wet palette you get right there. All right, once that's done, the black's laid on. Now I go through the fun, painstaking process to making the hazard stripes. So all I do is just pick an angle. There's no specific one. Put the piece of tape down, the Tamiya paint at an angle. And again, remember, it doesn't like to stick to this. And it even, um, but it sticks to the tape well. So what I do is I make sure a piece of the tab from the tape is on the frog tape, the green tape. And I just, yeah, follow suit. So I put one piece is always going to be used for my spacer, like to make sure the lines are even and um, yeah, you get it. And then I just line up the other piece on the other side of it, and I repeat that process until I'm done. And thanks to movie magic, you don't have to wait for all that. So here you go. All right, now it's next step is super simple. I just do a little bit heavier of a dry brush with whatever paint that is, Everland Sunset or however you want to say it. Here I am again using the brush I just said I wouldn't use on a piece of terrain, but it is what it is. So it's like a dry brush, but a little more, and because you want to get that black to come through. Of course, anyone that's ever painted with yellow knows if it's over black, then you don't need to try very hard to make sure the black comes through because it's impossible to get a nice coat over it. But you do this, and for And now for the most satisfying part of this painstaking process is the reveal. All right, now it's time to tackle the grate itself. Quick, easy rust method I use is just that scale color. It's like a reddish brown, perfect for rust. And I use that basically as the majority of the color that would show through. Of course, using the brush I just said I wouldn't use, but I just do this all over or not everywhere. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could have black show through or not. It doesn't matter. It'll look good either way. One method I like to do is I actually do leave black on purpose to show either less wear or more wear on something, like on pipes and stuff. It's big for me. Yeah, get in there, and you don't got to be neat about it. Just got to do it. All right, now I'm gonna do the same thing, just with Skag Brown, because it's the best color in the world for rust. It's like this weird, I don't know, orangey brown, perfect. I just do it randomly, and it might look bright now, but when it dries, it gets a little bit more tame. I just do sporadic because I don't want the whole thing to look like just Skag Brown, or I didn't want the whole thing to look just like the scale color I just used. So just blotch it around here and there. Again, you don't have to be neat. All right, now it's painted. It's time to wire it back up. These LEDs have a weird waxy coating on the outside of them. So what I like to use is just UV resin, and that helps keep them in place. You can also use hot glue, but super glue, it won't stick, and pretty much, well, really nothing will work. Epoxy clay will work, hold it in place, but you got to be careful with that, just because you don't want to cut up your wires and have a mess. So just do a little dab, hit it with some UV, and they stick. Keeping the positive electron, or the positive and negative sides clear, though. Obviously, that's important to be able to solder them back up. All right, this is the best part. So this is just UV resin pour. No, I'm sorry, the resin pour. It's two-part epoxy or resin, whatever. Um, Dries clear, stays clear. So I add the 2 drops, maybe 3 or 1 of the of an ink. You can also use pigment powders or anything. Try not to use a paint because they're kind of the medium or something kind of separates and doesn't mix very well. You can kind of see the swirls and stuff no matter how many times you stir it. But again, it's 2-part. Here I'm eyeballing it, which normally I don't. I have a measuring scale, but I left it in my garage. So yeah, I'm just winging it. I'm at the bottom of the two anyways, so I figured it didn't matter if I didn't get it right. Some people measure the volume that they would use and whatever. I'm not that meticulous, so again, obviously, if I'm just eyeballing this, but needless to say, I have a lot of wasted resin or multiple pours. Either way, I get it done. Is it wasteful? Sure. Do I care? A little. But you always want to, when you go to do the adding the color, do a very little amount the first time. Because you can always add more, but you can't take away. Of course, you can add more resin to dilute it, but at that point, the resin, I think, is probably more expensive than the inks or pigments, whatever you're using. I know it's more expensive, but at each their own. I think right now I'm trying to find a stir stick because I always seem to lose them. Boop, boop. So 2 drops. And again, remember I painted it brown, so it's important to note when you see the end result. Stir the crap out of it. Get the edges up. Make sure you don't use any stir sticks or things that are made that cause bubbles. Like there's some stir sticks out there that have little gaps in them, and what that does is that causes bubbles in your resin. And when you go to pour it, well, bubbles are your nightmare. They're my nightmare at least, especially when you're using this stuff on top of um, whatever it's called, like sand and gravel and stuff. What that does is I mean, there's going to be bubbles, but if you put something that has bubbles on top of something that's going to have bubbles, the air gaps, it's just a nightmare. But it's kind of fun to get rid of them. I just take a torch to it, and it's pretty satisfying to watch. The torch is, I don't know, I think it makes it more viscous, and the oxygen comes up and basically pops the bubbles for you. But it takes a long time, and you have to monitor it. It'll be like every 20 minutes, go back before the resin cures and hit it. You'll find new bubbles. You'll hit it again. And there's the torch I use. Of course, it doesn't work because I've been using it too much. Not because it's out, just because the I think I've been holding it upside down too long. But I fixed it, and yeah. Some people say start at one side because it's self-leveling. Um, Keep it a small stream. Actually, I think I'm thinking of something else. Either way, spread it around and make sure it's good. If you do stick to one side and let it actually self-level, what that can do is it'll actually start to cure and get um, too much built up on one side. What I actually end up doing is just kind of putting it where the majority of it will go, and then I just take this. There you go, like the side of the scrape, side of the stir stick, and just push it around. Again, I don't want too much. The paint actually adds a little bit of depth and makes it look like it's deeper than it is. So that's good enough for me. If I wanted to do a deep pour, honestly, none of that even matters. But the fact that one, I didn't want to have a ton of resin on this, and two, I didn't want to have to. If anyone's ever worked with resin, and you have a deep pour, and you have one little hole or one little area where that resin can go out, not only does it like find its way, but it finds its way onto your carpet, your garage floor, everywhere, and everywhere is permanently stuck and is a mess. So to me, I'd rather paint the effect of it being deeper than it actually is, and adding that depth. Especially, I mean, I'm gonna be covering this up with a grate, and it's gonna be lit up. So yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of selling the effect versus the you know, realism to it. There really is no there's minimal realism in the game that I play, so that we play. I don't know if you're watching this because you also play 40K and but yeah, the people that say that, like bolters should have drills holding them, holding out whatever board out of them because it's not realistic or not. I'm like, dude, you're playing with little toys. Um, so maybe calm down. I think if you're just in the hobby and you're doing it, do what you do. Whether you drill the holes out or don't. Just I enjoy anyone that plays the game. Anyone that has like a passion for it or a passion for any like hobby like this. So yeah, so here I think you can see the bubbles getting popped with the magic flamethrower. Yeah, isn't that cool? It's fun like the first time, but then after like the 50th, 1000th time, you're like, come on. But again, there's bubbles trapped underneath the rocks and stuff that I've chosen, or air trapped under there, which is a bubble. And then they'll come up slowly. The slower drying resin ones are a lot better for um, bubble management, if you want to call it that. But this one's a relatively fast one, just because that's what I had. I couldn't even tell you where I got it from. But it's my trusty Lotus um, torch, which I have my reservations about calling it trusty because my other Lotus that's in my garage is not trusty. Yeah, just clean up the resin because I mean, for whatever reason, the lip of that cup always catches a drop and always lands on my project every time. So the quicker you clean it up, the less shiny it'll be because I mean, obviously the resin has a shine to it. Um, but if you don't catch it in time and it does leave like that shiny shimmer, if you will, it's fine. Just go with it. Again, if you're, it's a little bit more um, submersive environment if you have actual like, if you have a pond and there's things that next to it that are wet, that makes sense. So is what it is. And if you have friends that you need to sell it to on the reasons of their mistakes, they're not your friends. Yeah, look at that lip. She's holding up. The one we did earlier with the UV resin, and you can't even tell that it's not colored. I didn't color the UV to make it match, so it's clear enough. It does look like it's not quite green, but it's because it's not green, and it's fine. I promise you, no one's gonna notice or care. I'm actually just hunting bubbles right now, so sorry you're watching this, but this is like the first 15 minutes while I enjoy doing it, and then after that I don't. Some of them actually will pop on their own too, but I'm impatient and I like to see the end result um, before it's done, before it's done curing. So yeah, I'll pop over to the end result, and it'll be worth it. I hope. Yeah, there's the resin all cured, hopefully bubble free, and there she is. Hey, thanks for watching, guys.